Hi, today we're going to take a look at how we can actually work with dealing with error messages in JSON. We're working with parsing that inside a Swift project. As you can see right here on my right, I've got my coffee struct. It's a codable type. And I've got country, region, altitude, year, variety, weight, and aroma score. And in my file right here, the JSON file I'm working with on the left, you can see the values match up till line here. On line 41, 43 is where I'm working with. I'm going to just do Command Z here. Like that. And so I have 82,178 instead of the country code of Colombia right there. So I have a different value for that. So instead of a string, I have an int there instead. And we're going to see what happens when we try and load that file up and what's going to cause so we can actually do some troubleshooting with that. And so what we want to do when we're troubleshooting, we want to first check a couple things. The first thing we want to do is when we want to check to make sure we're actually loading the right file. So again, I've got my coffee clean JSON. So if I go to my row view right here, so I'm going to go to my information in row view right here. I'm saying that I'm using coffee clean as my load JSON file, what I'm calling to that. And that's what I'm listed over here inside my raw data folder. So that's a great thing to check. I've got that first. That's the first thing I'm making. Next thing, making sure that inside there I'm using the stored coffee inside that. So I've got loading that right there as well. Perfect stuff for that. And so I'm going to go ahead and run this project really quick. So go ahead and Command R to run. We're going to see what happens as we get that error, what happens to our project, and how we can fix it. So you can see as I ran that file, immediately threw an error right here inside my error message, and it gave, for information, it said a type mismatch string decoding error, and a coding key at index 460, int value 460. Now it's not talking about row 460, but index 460 in that list. And so that's right here in that line 41, 43 is where that's happening. So I'm gonna undo that back to Columbia so I can fix that. But where that's happening is over here in my utilities.swift. And so in my utilities.swift, we have a method that loads that JSON right here, and so it takes the file and it's like, oh, I'm going to take, if it's coffee clean, I'm going to turn and decode that as an array of coffee objects, which match this information right here. So it tries to turn it into a list of that type, so I can have it right there, and it describes the error. And so with that specifically, I'm using that print method. Instead of just print the error localized message, I'm using print and using string and then describing that error. So that description right there gives a more detailed description, so we can actually have a better understanding of what happens when we have a data parsing error. So I'm going to hit my save and rerun that project so we can see what happens now that I've fixed that error. My build is successful. My error message doesn't happen, so I can close that window, go back to my app, and my favorite data info. Oh, look, now I can see all that coffee information I correctly loaded now inside this, and I can see the information that's stored inside that. So I can actually grab that information. So again, what happens is when you're working with JSON data, if you get an error message on that, you want to make sure that check the values first before you even clean it to make sure they actually have the right types on all of them. And again, that's when you do that when you're flattening the data from in Excel or Google Sheets or Numbers, whatever tool you're working to make sure that all the data types match. But then also when you're loading the JSON, you want to make sure that when you print the error message, instead of just giving a quick error description, you do a string describing that error. That gives you a much more detailed version of what's going on with that. Then you have a better understanding of how to work with that. And that's a great way to troubleshoot how you can work with JSON data inside your project. I hope that's helpful. Have a great day. Cheers. See you next time. Bye-bye.